Hey guys, welcome back to another video of my channel, and this is the series last episode. Actually, this series is on a particular harsh stop, and the authors think that he is the fucking god, so he can write whatever he wants, and that's why he's on a sad, sadistic break. So I'm talking nonsense. If you like this video, why don't you subscribe the channel and turn on the bell icon for upcoming new series? Because this series is also on break because the author is also on break. So let's get set for a while. And why don't you subscribe the channel? I think I said it before, but that's it. Let's begin today's episode without any more delay. Have me complete my small goal, which is 10,000 subscribers. So share or do whatever you want. Just help me complete it. Let's begin today's episode.
When Naruto awoke, he looked around and found himself in his room. He closed his eyes again when he detected a presence in the room and a voice said, "Give it up, Echo. I know you're awake." Naruto sighed and sat up slowly and stiffly and glared at the person sitting across from him and said, "So what are you doing here now, Reload?" Reload pulled his chair over and put his feet on the table beside the bed, getting a glare from Naruto as he pulled out a deck of cards and started to shuffle them and said, "We got to talk. Alone. I got the room in lockdown for the next little bit, as well as put a feedback loop in the camera system as well as neural disruptors so Xavier or Phoenix won't be able to spy." Naruto said, "So what do you want? I saw you in my head when Cash was there, so I know you have been here before now, so." Reload passed out the cards and Naruto looked at his two cards and Reload flipped one on the deck and said, "Ah, the Queen of Hearts. A perfect card to start our discussion." Naruto said, "Well, get on with it." Reload flipped another card and it was a Joker and frowned and said, "And a Joker would be perfect representation of Apocalypse." As he flipped another card and it was a King of Heart and he said, "Apocalypse will be coming for the Queen of Hearts because she is the only one who can bring the King of Hearts out and the only one who can stop him as the king. You must ensure he never gets his hands on the Queen or it's game over. The king must also survive." Naruto frowned and said, "So who is the queen?" Reload flipped another card and it was a Queen of Diamonds and he said, "That is for you to figure out. You should also beware of the Queen of Diamonds. She wants the King of Hearts for herself, but she wants to turn him into the King of Diamonds to make a flush, and she would be willing to use the Joker." As he flipped another card showing another Joker, or the other one to get him. Naruto sighed and said, "So you're saying that I have two women who are going to be coming after me and Apocalypse is after one of them?" Reload looked at Naruto and said, "I never said you were the king. I just told you that you would have to save the Queen of Hearts from the Joker. You could either be the king." As he flipped the last card showing a Jack of Heart, or a Knight. "Your decision will be the one who will determine who is the king or if there is even a King of Hearts. So what do you have?" Naruto said. "Straight flush. Showing the Ace of Hearts and 10 of Hearts." Reload nods and said, "Beats my full house." As he folds his cards. Naruto frowns and said, "So Tenten's the queen, isn't she?" Reload said, "Perhaps, perhaps not. Only you and time can tell for sure. Just remember that the Jack is expendable, the queen is not, because only she can bring forth the king. But if your hand plays out, the Jack would want to be around also. Good luck." As he got up and left just as the door to his room busted open and Magneto came in and asked, "Are you all right?" As he had the metal form back to the door. Naruto looked at the cards with narrowed eyes and said, "Yes, but we have much to discuss. Call everyone to the war room, please, Eric. If Cash is here also, then bring her along." Magneto looked around one last time and nods, and Naruto gets out of bed still in his pajama pants and he goes to wash up. 20 minutes later, Naruto walks into the war room with just a pair of shorts and a wife beater on, and Xavier asked, "What is it you call a meeting for, Naruto?" Naruto walked over to the computer ignoring everyone and he started to type something and said, "Sorry for the informalities, but I need to make sure of what I believe before I say it, so please bear with me." He stopped and asked, "Shit, nothing." as he turned around and said, "Sorry for ignoring you a moment. I was hoping the computer could come up with one of the clues to the puzzle." Rogue asked, "What puzzle?" Naruto sighed and said, "I just had a little chat with my new, least favorite time travel. Tell Cable congrats, he's been replaced in my book as an annoying ass by Reload, making a few people snicker." Xavier said, "So what did he say?" Naruto sighed and said, "Me and him played a game of cards. He told me during the game that Apocalypse is going to try and kill someone soon. A woman. Who? I don't know, but whoever she is has the ability to bring someone who can kill Apocalypse, but only if she lives. He also told me there is another woman involved who wants to take the one who can kill Apocalypse away so he won't be able to stop him, and she is willing to work with either Apocalypse or another person who has an interest in the party. The last thing he told me was that someone will most likely die to save the one who can bring the one who can kill Apocalypse. I don't have enough information at the time to figure out who these others are, but one thing is for sure. Whoever this woman is that Apocalypse wants dead, we have to save her at all cost." Kakashi, who was standing beside Tenten, asked, "Did he give any other clues as to who these people could be?" Naruto frowned and said, "The only other thing is how he chose to display each of them. He had the one who can kill Apocalypse as a King of Hearts, the woman who brings him forward is the Queen of Hearts, the one who could die is the Jack of Hearts, the woman who wants the king is the Queen of Diamonds, and Apocalypse and the other person were both jokers." Xavier frowned and Jean closed her eyes and said, "Naruto, was there anything else you can tell us about Reload?" Naruto sighed and said, "Besides the fact that Reload can use liquid metal." Everyone went wide-eyed a moment and Tenten asked, "Are you sure?" Naruto said, "Yeah, why?" Magneto asked, "Were you able to tell what kind of metal?" Naruto said, "No, the only reason I picked it up was because the cards we played the game with was made of metal. Until I picked them up I did not even detect it. I was able mark one using my powers by bending the corner as a test and I watched as it formed back to normal." "Why?" Tenten looked at Jean, who nods slowly, and Jean said, "Because of what happened to you and Cash, she is now able to use liquid metal as an attack." Naruto looked sad a moment and said, "I see. Cash, I want to say I." Tenten held her hand up and said, "Don't worry about it. You did all you could to save me and that's all I could ask. Besides having some really cool powers now like you and the others here, I don't see anything to be sorry for. Yes, it hurt, but it wasn't your fault and you got revenge for me already, so don't worry about it." Naruto bit his lip and nodded, and Xavier asked, "Speaking of, how do you feel now? It looks like you're having trouble with something." Naruto frowns and nods slowly and said, My emotions. When I think of some things now, like the Hokage, I used to be happy just to see him, but now I feel several emotions about him: happiness, hatred, envy, joy, anger, and pity. I don't understand what I should feel for him. It's not just him either. My feelings for Kakashi are screwed up also for reasons." Tenten said, "If it's because he's my father, then don't worry about it. I already dealt with him." Naruto frowns and Wolverine said, "Your masks is broke, making everyone look at him." Tenten asked, "What do you mean, Wolverine?" Wolverine said, "Look at his face when he's thinking. Normally he could keep his emotions hidden so he could use his favorite fighting style without worry. Since he's been in here, he's frowned, bit his lip, showed confusion, and several other emotions like he's never done before." Naruto asked, "What exactly happened in my mind? I know Xavier, Phoenix, Cash, and Reload were in my head, but what exactly happened?" Xavier said, "Your dark side and your light side have merged together. You're no longer have to fear becoming Maelstrom, and you're also no longer just Echo. You both and neither." Naruto nods and looked at his metal hand and looked saddened a moment and said, "So what now?" "I mean, I destroyed an island. Again." Magneto said, "Perhaps you should return home for some time to clear your head." After all, you're supposed to be getting ready for a wedding soon anyways. Naruto sighed and said, has it been that long? Rogue said, yes, son. Kakashi said, while that is perhaps a good idea, what about his duties here? Naruto looked at Kakashi and said, Kakashi, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't belong here. Not anymore. This incident just proved it more. I will stay here until we deal with Apocalypse and then I'm gone. I only have one true friend here, and because of me she's now become a mutant. If I never came here she would still be with her old team and Orochimaru would never have had that doctor make her a test subject. That's the only other thing I am going to do before I leave Kakashi. I made a promise on that island and I always keep my promises. I will kill Orochimaru for not only what he did to me but also the pain he caused Cash. Now if nobody minds I am going to the danger room to burn off some energy. As he disappeared using slip. After he was gone, Xavier said, I believe that is all for now. I want you all to think over what you heard and keep a lookout for anyone who might be an interest for Apocalypse. Kakashi sighed as he looked at everyone leave and he looked where Tenten had been sitting and saw she was gone. He shook his head and pulled out his copy of Ica Ica Paradise. A few moments earlier Rogue saw Tenten slipping out using the side door and she moved back as well. Once Tenten left the room she went toward her room but was stopped by Rogue who said, we need to talk. Tenten asked, what about? With a little bit of snippiness in her voice. Rogue said, about how you feel for my son. Tenten said, I don't feel anything for him. Rogue slapped Tenten and said, bullshit. You may think you're fooling everyone but the only one who hasn't figured it out is Naruto. We all saw how you have been sneaking into his room to check on him and sitting by his bed and how every time his name is mentioned your ears instantly pick up. You should realize the only one besides him that you're really fooling is yourself because you don't realize he cares for you also. You heard the recording of the talk between him and Orochimaru, so you heard the worry in his voice when he was trying to get a hold of you as well as the when he threatened you. You're both just too stupid to realize how badly you care for him. Tell me, if he would have been anyone else in this village who was without a team, would you still have left yours to be with him? Hell no you wouldn't, so drop the act. Tenten said, what does it matter? He's leaving soon and I won't ever see him again, so the problem's solved. Glad we could settle this, goodbye. Rogue grabbed Tenten and slammed her against a wall and said, listen here little girl. I can understand you being pissed off right now but you don't have to be a bitch about it. Believe me, I am Bitch Master version 9.0. You don't have shit on me. Tenten said, let me go. As she tried to get free. Rogue said, or what? You going to attack me? Then what? Run away scared and then cry your eyes out giving yourself a pity party. I thought you hated it when people ran away from their problems. Tenten formed a pair of kunais in her hand and went to attack Rogue only to have both her arms pulled backwards with Rogue placing a knee into the middle of Tenten's back as Tenten's face was slammed against a wall. Rogue said, now that's what I like to see. Someone who likes to stand up for themselves. Someone who don't take shit off of anyone. You think just because Blondie said he was leaving you never see him again? How can you be sure? A lot could happen between now and then. You're a ninja. You could die on your next mission and it won't matter 2 cents either way then, so what are you going to do about it? You going to just run to your room and cry your eyes out, or are you going to fight until the end? Are you going to let him get away with hurting your feelings, or are you going to make him remember you as the most badass bitch this side of hell he's ever going to meet, and you're not letting him go without a fight? Tenten tried to get free but felt her strength leaving her and said, no, I'm not going to cry and I'm not giving up. I just don't understand why. If he cares for me, then why is he willing to just leave me? A voice from down the hall a little said, because he feels it's his fault you got hurt and he thinks if he failed you once it will happen again. Making both women look and see Kakashi reading his book. Rogue let Tenten go and asked, how long have you been here? Kakashi said. Long enough. Now, Rogue, I do admit my daughter may be an idiot at times when it comes to love, a trait she picked up from me, but could you try not to break her? I mean, she could be your daughter-in-law someday. Tenten went red with embarrassment and screamed, Dad. Kakashi chuckled and said, Now let's see. If you both start to date, I have to give him the famous you hurt her and I kill you speech. What can I threaten a boy who can destroy an entire island with? Rogue said. That's easy. His booze. Tenten said. Won't work. I already destroyed them all. Rogue said. You really don't know him well, do you? Kid's probably already got some made somewhere, and if he's working off his frustration in the danger room like I think he is, then odds are he's got several bottles of it with him. Tenten's eyes gleamed and said, Oh hell no. I already told him he was not going to make any more, and if I find he's drinking again I am going to kill him. As she took off running toward the danger room. Kakashi looked at Rogue and said, Told you it would work. Rogue said, So how's your little project? Isarabi. Kakashi said, She's doing good. I say that by the time the exams get here she should be ready. Since I resigned from teaching Sasuke, he was put on Team 9 under Guy, and I have been labeled as both Tenten and Naruto Sensei of Team 7. I have her working 3 days a week with Anko and 3 days with me. Between us she's progressing really fast. I got her the day after tomorrow again. Rogue nods and said, Well, I wonder how the love birds are doing. Naruto was in the danger room with his claws extended, running in the Bronx during rush hour traffic with sentinels, anti-mutant supporters, army, marines, National Guards, helicopters, tanks, as well as a couple of hundred of Apocalypse little soldiers all attacking him at once, while he had a beer cap with the words I am the designated driver on it on his head, with 2 bottles of homebrew upside down connected to a straw that was in his mouth. This was the sight Tenten walked in on, and the program froze for a moment when the door opened, causing Naruto to turn and look, and saw Tenten with her arms crossed tapping her index fingers on both her arms as she was tapping her foot, and she asked in a sickening sweet voice, What did I say about being drunk? Naruto looked sheepish a moment and said, I am still 5 bottles short of getting drunk. Tenten formed 2 kunais in her hand and said, Sorry, but now you have to be punished. As she threw her kunais, breaking the bottles in his hat, and he paled and said, Wait, I can cut back. Tenten said, No, you're going to quit altogether. Naruto stopped and said, Oh hell no, I am not. Tenten got a gleam in her eye and said, Yes you are, or I will kick your ass until you see it my way. Naruto said, Is that a challenge? Tenten said, Yeah, it is. As she formed a pair of claws out of her skin like Wolverine's. Naruto smirked and said, You have to catch me first. Resume program. As suddenly everything began moving again. Tenten soon found herself also being attacked, but she was taking out anything that got in her way. Naruto appeared behind her as a group of soldiers surrounded her and said, I have to say, you have improved. Tenten blushed and said, You haven't seen anything yet. As she grabbed her shirt and pants, ripping them off, showing her in a thong and a sports bra, making Naruto wide-eyed and hold his nose from a nosebleed as he shouts, What the hell are you doing? Tenten smirked and said, This. As suddenly she jumped into the air and thousands of Senbon needles shot out of her body, hitting anything and everything including Naruto. When Tenten landed, she smirked at Naruto, who had Senbons in several pressure points in his body, making him unable to move, and Tenten grabbed her cloths and slipped them back on, and Naruto saw that they were also made out of liquid metal, and Tenten had all the weapons but those in Naruto form liquid and come back to her, and she walked over and placed her foot on his crotch and rubbed it back and forward a little and said, Now if I catch you drinking again I will crush this. Do I make myself clear? Naruto paled and said, Yes. Tenten smirked and said, Good, now I want you to go take a shower and get dressed and meet me in 2 hours. We are going out to eat and you're paying. Naruto said, Why do I have? Okay. As Tenten put a little more pressure on his crotch, and she smirked and said, Now be a good boy and I might give you some kind of reward later. Naruto asked. What kind of reward? Tenten walked over to an ice chest she saw and opened it and destroyed all the bottles but one and said, I might let you have a sip of this with dinner. As she reabsorbed the weapons including the ones in Naruto and left. Naruto laid back on the ground and said, my god, she just like my mother except mom only threatens my booze when I have more than 3 a day. She threatened my manhood. When the hell did I get whipped? Gambit said. The moment you decided you liked a girl more dangerous than you. As he walked over to Naruto and helped him up. Naruto sighed and said, I can't help but feel mom was involved in this whole thing. Gambit said, only a fool bets against a sure thing and I am no fool. Naruto smiled and said, but damn, she does have a nice body and a nice set of legs. Gambit smirked and said, looks like I don't have to get you a hooker for a birthday present after all. Naruto said, I suppose you're right, that is if she likes me. Gambit said, I am sure she does. She is showing you who wears the pants in the family. Naruto said, yeah, metal ones at that. Gambit laughed as him and Naruto left the room. A little later when Naruto showed up outside the house he was dressed in a pair of black cargo pants and a blue muscle shirt. He waited for a little while until Tenten came out and she was dressed in a black dress that fit to her perfectly and Naruto gaped at her and Tenten smirked and made a pose and asked, so how do I look? Naruto said, you look great. Tenten said, thanks, now come on. I am starving. Naruto said, hey, since I am paying shouldn't I decide where we are going to eat? Tenten said, nope. This is not a date. This is part of your punishment for drinking again. Naruto said, and why should I listen to you anyways? I am the sensei remember. Tenten said, not anymore. We are now a 3-man team with my dad as our sensei and as for why you should listen. What would your mother think if she knew Gambit was going to get a hooker for you for your birthday? Naruto paled and said, you heard that. How? Tenten said, I went to the control booth to see my accuracy on weapons and I heard you both talking. Thanks for the compliment on my legs. I do think they are my best feature. Naruto said, yeah, not even your, as he caught himself. Tenten looked at him and said, not even my what? Naruto said, nothing. Tenten pouted for a moment and turned to Naruto and put her arm behind his head as she moved close and ran her other hand down his stomach toward his crotch and Naruto went wide-eyed a moment before he paled as he felt a kunai tapping his crotch and Tenten said, not even my what? Naruto sighed and said, not even your eyes are as nice as they are and your eyes are heaven. Tenten blushed and Naruto smirked as Tenten stepped back and said, that's not fair. You use flattery where I use threats. Naruto said, hey, you can attract more flies with honey than you can vinegar and besides, you know the old saying, opposites attract. Tenten smirked and said, so does that mean you're attracted to me? Naruto smirked and said, well you have mounted me once. Tenten went red with embarrassment and asked, what do you mean? Naruto said, oh, while I was getting ready I checked my room's security system since reload messed with it and I saw when you helped me. I must say I always thought you liked being on top of things. Naruto started to run as weapons flew at him across rooftops as Tenten chased after him. Finally after recollecting all the weapons they had a nice quiet dinner where Tenten was pissed at Naruto who had a smug look on his face the entire time. After dinner Naruto walked her back to the mansion and said, I had a good time tonight, and I was hoping we might be able to do it again sometime. Tenten looked at him and asked, are you asking me out? Naruto said, if I am would you say yes? Tenten put her finger to her chin acting like she was in deep thought as Naruto shifted on his feet and she said, depends. Naruto asked, depends on what? Tenten said, this. As she locked lips with him and pulled him into a hug as they kissed. Just then several flashes went off all around them and both jumped back and Kakashi said, ah, my daughter's first kiss, sniff, sniff, she's so much like her mother it's scary. Tenten went beet red with embarrassment as she tried to hide behind Naruto and screamed, "Dad!" As the rest of the X-Men came out of hiding holding cameras and Rogue cried fake tears as she landed and said, "My boy's growing up so fast, so when can I expect grandkids?" Tenten had enough embarrassment and she fainted right then and Naruto caught her as he screamed, "Mom!" as the other laughed. After Naruto got Tenten to her room he saw Beast who had several cameras and asked, "So how did you guys get so close without us detecting you?" Beast said, "Kakashi has been teaching us a few genjutsu so Nightcrawler and I could go into town and the others learned them as well." "Well, good night Naruto. It's good having you back." Naruto said, "Thanks Hank. Anyway I could convince you to destroy those." Hank said, "Sure." As he walked over and threw them in the garbage chute. Naruto said, "Thanks." Hank said, "No problem. The film has already been developed." Naruto said, "Damn it you fucking blue furball, I am going to shave my name on your head and shave your ass bald." As he tried to catch Beast who was laughing running down the hall. The next morning when Tenten woke up she looked around her room and screamed. A few moments later Naruto came running in her room and froze as Tenten stood gaping in nothing but bra and panties as she looked around her room as hundreds of photos of her and Naruto kissing the night before were covering her room including having been printed on her blanket. All from different portable, digital and surveillance camera shots. She slowly turned and saw Naruto who was moving his mouth trying to say something and she asked, "What's your problem?" As she followed his eyes and went, "Eep." As she dove under the covers hiding herself. Naruto seemed to snap out of it and said, "I will, yeah." As he shook his head and said, "Sorry, what did you say?" Tenten screamed, "Get out." Naruto ran out of the room as a kunai hit the door as he slammed it shut. As Naruto was panting on his ass outside of her door Kakashi asked from the chair he was sitting in that had appeared since Naruto ran in the room, "Sue, is everything alright in there?" Naruto shot him a glare and flipped Kakashi off and said, "Go to hell copycat." Kakashi shrugged and said, "I would accept Anko and Wolverine are in it right now screwing like wild animals." Naruto blinked as what was said registered and he said, "Come again." Kakashi said, "You heard me. When I went to the danger room to check on Isarabi progress from Anko I found Isarabi was working with Beast and I asked him where Anko was and he told me to look in Wolverine's room. That man has almost as bad an obsession with cutting things as Anko." "Anyways what were we talking about?" Naruto said, "You were asking me what I thought of your daughter." Kakashi put his finger to his chin and said, "Was I, I don't remember." Naruto changed into Kakashi and said, "There's that cool hip attitude that pisses me off." As his teeth pinged. Kakashi shivered and said, "Never do that again or I will forbid you from seeing my daughter." Naruto changed back and said, "And what if I were to say march back into her room, throw her on the bed and ravage her, what would you say?" Kakashi said, "Watch the claws." When her mother got sexually excited it was just like an animal in heat and she literally grew circa. As he felt a hand on his shoulder. He paled as he looked to the right and saw Tenten with a sickening sweet smile on her face and she said, "So you have no problem with becoming a grandpa huh? Come on Naruto-kun, let's go wild." As she grabbed Naruto's hand and started to walk back to her room. Kakashi paled and said, "Wait, I was only joking." Tenten smirked and Naruto thought, "How the hell am I so whipped by her? I mean the only person who gets away with shit like this to me is my mother. I am a fucking Omega level mutant. I can destroy the entire world if I wanted to so why the hell do I let her lead me around by my." Tenten looked at Naruto and said, "Why the hell can I hear your thoughts and what the hell do you mean you could destroy the world and what am I leading you around by?" As she let go of his hand. Naruto looked confused and said, "Wait, how did you hear my thoughts?" Tenten shrugged and Kakashi said, "Let's go, the others were wanting to see you too when you got up so come on." As he turned and started to walk away. As the three walked into the war room, Naruto walked over and hopped up on a counter and thought, "Hey Jean, did Cash get psychic powers also?" Jean, who was talking to Cyclops, stopped and looked at Naruto and thought, "No, why?" Naruto thought, "Just a few minutes earlier she had what I was thinking and then asked me about it." Jean said, "Scott, I will be right back. I need to talk to Cash a second," as she got up and walked over to Tenten. Tenten and Kakashi had sat down near the back of the room and Jean walked over and thought, "Can you hear me, Cash?" Tenten looked at Jean and asked, "What? Do I have something on my face?" as she rubbed her face. Jean said, "Echo told me you heard his thoughts earlier. Can you tell me about it?" Tenten said, "Well, I came out of my room and Dad and him were joking and Dad said something perverted again and I came back with one on my own and grabbed Echo's hand and started to walk into my room with him and I heard his thoughts." Jean frowned a moment and grabbed Tenten's hand and thought, "Is Naruto a good kisser?" Tenten blushed a moment and Jean let go and said, "Interesting. Hey Kakashi, grab her hand and think something." Kakashi grabbed Tenten's hand and thought, "I wonder if I should get her and Naruto a box of condoms each." Tenten punched Kakashi in the face, sending him into a wall and screamed, "Pervert." Jean said, "So you can hear people's thoughts by touching them? That would put you as a beta level mutant, but your other power puts you currently at an alpha level. I will put it in your file about your new powers and if you notice anything else let me know." Tenten nods as Kakashi walks back over and Jean walks back to Scott. The professor comes in with Magneto behind him and said, "Sorry to keep you all waiting. Now the reason I have called this meeting is since the immediate crisis is over, I am wanting everyone to prepare to return to our world. I know Bishop and the others have everything under control, but we don't want to overstay our welcome at this time. Now as for the second reason I called this meeting. As all of you have seen, we have taken the time to help Cash learn to control her powers as well as shown hospitality toward her father Kakashi. I would like to say again how sorry we are that you were affected by our actions, Cash, and thank you for taking it all in good fashion." Tenten said, "No problem. I actually like my powers and I think you are all great people. A few are a little weird sometimes, especially Echo, but that is what make each of you special. I want to say thank you for teaching me to use them." As everyone chuckled at Naruto's expense, Xavier said, "Now on to more important matters. Cash, I would like to ask you if you would like to become an official X-Men." Tenten blinked and asked, "What do you mean?" Xavier said, "Up until now you have always had at least one person watching you and your father to ensure you did not betray our trust. Think of it as a probation period. We do it all the time when we have someone come and stay with us at the school so we can determine if they are actually coming as friends or enemies. Before the trap your team fell on, we had Kakashi listed as a spy." Tenten blinked and asked, "Why?" as she looked around shocked. Naruto said, "Because he was mentally checking for security weaknesses and other things to report to the Hokage. That is why he only had a rank level security. If you remember, I had you at the same level, and if you went to any of the rooms like this room or the danger room or the hangar, you always had someone with you who actually put the clearance for you. You have to understand, we can't let Konoha have access to say, the X-Jet or the danger room. If they did, they would not only have access to all of our personal files and fighting information but also weaknesses that could have been used against us." Tenten frowned and said, "I guess I can see where that would be needed. What would be the difference between what I have now and if I actually become an X-Men?" Xavier said, "Well, you would get one of our actual radios like we all carry on us, so if say another trap happened you would be able to call for emergency help from us like Echo did. Also you would not have to wait for Echo to take you to the danger room to practice if you wanted to, or you would even have access to the Skyhopper." Naruto said, "My Skyhopper? Hell no." Tenten smirked and said, "Deal. Sign me up or whatever." Naruto screamed, "No, my poor baby. She's going to crash it." Earning chuckles from everyone. Xavier said, Beast, would you do the honors? Beast said, it would be my honor. As he turned to a computer and started to type and said, Hitaki Tenten, codename Cash, X-level access granted. Status, X-Men. Tenten looked at Kakashi, who smiled at her, and Xavier said, don't think we have forgotten about you, Kakashi. Now as for you, we have all decided that since you have been helpful in teaching us about being a ninja more than what we had in our data from the Hokage and showing us around 400 jutsu that were recorded in the danger room, we would like to ask if you would like to become an honorary X-Men. Kakashi said, what's that basically mean? Rogue said, it's an honor we have only granted to about 50 normal humans in our world. It means that even if you are not a mutant to us, you are an example for the others to follow. It is our way of saying thank you for treating us as people and equals, and if you are ever in need, we are willing to come and help. You will also be given a radio like Cash had when she was captured. It is one of our basic ones that does not have our command frequency on it and can only go around 10 miles for local communication with another X-Men, but it also has the emergency frequency that comes to this room, and it connects to the same room in our other mansion, alerting us of your need. Not many people have earned our complete trust. You will have access to the danger room but not to personal information or the hangar or science labs or this room without someone already being in here. Kakashi thinks a moment and said, will it interfere with my responsibilities to the village of Konoha? Xavier said, no, in fact we have something Eric and I have discussed and would like to talk over with your Hokage. Kakashi asked, what might that be? Xavier said, because of the skills you have shown including basic first aid, we think that our world might be able to use some of that knowledge and we would like to form a treaty with Konoha. This will be of course after we deal with Apocalypse. He is our primary worry at the moment. We would be willing to teach some of our knowledge to Konoha in exchange, but we can iron out the details later. For now it's just in the initial stage. Kakashi said, as long as it does not interfere with my duty to the village or betrays the village, I will accept. Beast said, good, I had already put that in ahead of time. Kakashi sighed and Naruto said, so when are you guys leaving? Magneto said, this afternoon. I have received some reports from the Brotherhood I need to look into. It appears your fangirl is getting desperate to find you. Tenten asked, who is this fangirl you guys are always talking about? Naruto sighed and said, her name is Suzy K. Bomba. Her father was elected president almost 3 years ago. I saved her life and now she has hero worship for me. Long story short, because of me saving her life, her father passed some laws that gave mutants equal rights as normal humans, recognizing mutants as an actual race, and has brought the first true peace for us for as long as I have known. Eric said, the first true peace mutants have seen in over 59 years. Before that there were not really enough mutants seen and known about to really have any information on. There are exceptions like Apocalypse. Naruto said, and Diamond. Sadly. Xavier said, and Diamond. Are you still going to go through with it? Tenten glanced at Naruto and asked, what? Naruto said, I promised her I would and I never go back on my word. One day I will help reunite her with her family. Tenten smiled and thought, he can be kind and caring. I wonder who Diamond is though. I thought I saw all his life, but maybe I just saw some of it. Xavier said, well, that is all we have for now. I want you all ready to head back by 4 p.m. Echo. Cash, Kakashi. I want you to try and look after each other while we gone, and if you need help don't hesitate to ask. Also, if any of you hear anything about Apocalypse, notify us immediately. Don't try and fight him alone, do you understand, Echo? Naruto looked sheepish and said, don't worry, I know. Xavier nods and said, well, it was a pleasure meeting you all. Is there anything else you want to say before we leave, Eric? Magneto said, yes, here. As he walked over to Tenten as he pulled something from his back and slipped it in her hand and said, that is something special. Ask Echo what it is after we leave, but don't let him see it until then. Tenten nods and Naruto asked, What you up to, Eric? Eric smiled and said, you will know after we leave. Well, I must be going. Mystic is probably ready to kill the rest of the Brotherhood. Naruto slapped his head and said, she's probably PMsing. I swear she's only one of 4 women who scare me. Rogue said, well, besides me, her and Cash here, who's the other? Naruto said, Anko, any woman who is as crazy enough to sleep with Wolverine is scary in my book. Everyone snickered at that and Tenten said, so you're scared of me? Naruto said, I am scared to find out how exactly what will grow back on my body if you decide to go hack and slash on my Cyclops. Tenten got red and said, shut up, pervert. Rogue walked over and said, remember, we only have about a month before you need to start getting ready for the wedding. Naruto nods and said, I will be there. Rogue looked at Cash and asked, what about you? Are you coming to the wedding? I mean, Wonderboy here needs an escort, and since you and him are dating now. Tenten blushed and said, oh yeah, I guess we are kind of a couple now. I guess with all that has happened it slipped my mind until now. Yeah, I will come if the Hokage allows me to leave. Rogue nods and said, now you take care of her, son. I like her and I think she's a keeper who can keep you in line. Naruto said, Mom. In a whinny voice. Rogue said, don't mom me. You have a habit of getting yourself into trouble without trying and need someone who will keep you out of it. I know he's not much to work with, but I think you can work with what you got. Naruto got red from embarrassment and Tenten snickered and said, don't worry, I will keep him out of trouble. Kakashi said, and I will keep her from getting pregnant. Tenten screamed, Dad, as she turned and punched Kakashi in the stomach, launching him into a wall. Kakashi rubbed his stomach and thought, damn, she hits harder than Tsunade. Jean walked over and said, well, I tested her and it turns out she has some minor powers in that echo. She has to be touching the person to do it. Naruto nods and said, well, if that is all, I think I am going to help Mom pack. As he turned and left. Tenten said, so want to go help me train Dad? Kakashi said, sure, you need to start practicing with Isarabi anyways. By the way, is she an X-Men also or what? Jean said, no, she has a level access like you did, but she doesn't trust us yet. I can understand with what happened to her. Well, I must be going. Good luck you too. As she left. Tenten said, well, come on, Dad. I guess vacation is just about over. We will start mission again soon, won't we? Kakashi said, yes, tomorrow. Tenten nods and asked, so what does everyone know about me? Kakashi said, they know you were captured and hurt and you have been getting physical therapy for your injury but don't know anything else. Tenten nods and said, does the Hokage know? Kakashi said, yes, but he does not know everything. The only thing he knows is you now have a mutant power, but what it is and he does not know. I told him you would tell him when you trust him and he agreed. Tenten said, thanks, Dad. Kakashi smiled and said, so seriously, do you want me to get you a box of condoms? Tenten went red and screamed, Dad. Kakashi laughed and dodged her punch, which pissed her off more as she started to make weapons. Kakashi paled and waved his hands and said, sorry, I'm just trying to make up for. You know. Tenten seemed to deflate and said, well, quit being such a pervert. I swear I will never understand why Mom liked you. Kakashi said, the mask, she wanted to know what I looked like behind it. Tenten frowns and said, that reminds me, what do you look like under it? Kakashi smiled and said, sorry, can't show you. Tenten gaped and said, but why, I am your daughter. Kakashi shrugged and said, the only 5 people to ever see me without my mask were my parents who home-birthed me, your mom, and Naruto's parents. Other than that, no one has ever seen it and that's the way it will remain. Tenten said, so Naruto's parents knew, huh, why them? Kakashi shrugged and said, Minato-sensei was my sensei and his wife was a ninja from Whirlpool and both saw it when I had dinner with your mother and them at their place the day we told each other about expecting children soon. They were your godparents and your mother was his godmother. Tenten asked. Then who was his godfather? Kakashi said. Jiraiya of the Sanins. So tell me, do you know what your elemental affinity is? Tenten frowned and said. Yes, water. Kakashi frowned a moment and said. Okay, I was hoping you also had lightning so I could teach you my signature move. Tenten said. Well, why can't you try anyways? Kakashi said. Perhaps but later. Let's go. The next day Echo, Cash, and Kakashi walked into the Hokage office and the third said. Ah, I am so glad to see you are both up and doing well now. Naruto said. Anyway, I can get info on Orochimaru. I have a promise to keep. The third frowned and said. No, you're not. The fact you both came out of that trap alive was nothing short of a miracle. I made a terrible mistake sending you both alone without a Junin sensei and it nearly cost you your lives. Tenten said. Yes, but we're stronger for it now, sir. The third said. Yes, but at what cost? I would like to know at least what has happened to you, Cash, if you would tell me, and I would like to know why you never told me about what happened to you, Naruto. Naruto said. I told you I killed before. I don't like talking about it. Do you like talking about mass genocide if you're the one responsible for it? The third frowned and Tenten said. I have better healing and the inside of my body is now indestructible and I never have to buy weapons ever again. As she held out her hand and liquid metal formed a kunai. The third said. I see. Anything else? Tenten said. Not that I am aware of for now, sir. It is possible new powers might appear later, but for now my codename seems to still be good for me for my new powers. He nods and said. Well, as of now you are officially Team 7 under Kakashi and your third teammate is Isarabi. I expect you both to try and help her adjust and you are to familiarize yourself with the changes I understood you both have went through. Naruto nods and said. Yeah, it's different now that my mind is whole again. I am still having trouble with what my emotions should be, but with Tenten's help I am getting better. Tenten said. And I am adjusting to my abilities greatly as well. That reminds me, sir. In a couple of weeks I would like to request a leave of duty, sir. I have been invited to be Echo escort to his mother's wedding in the other world. The third said. Very well, but I am trusting you, Naruto, to take care of her while she is there. Naruto said. Don't worry, I will. As he grabbed her hand and the third smiled for a moment seeing this and said. Well, your third teammate is at training ground 44 with Anko. I want you all to go and get used to each other and then here is a mission for you. As he handed a scroll to Kakashi. Kakashi said. Yes, sir. I will get them started tracking down Tora. Naruto frowned and said. Hey Cash, think you can kill that cat? It seems indestructible to me. Tenten smirked and said. Maybe. Let's go. As she turned and started to walk and after several seconds realized she was walking but not moving and she said in a sicking sweet voice. Naruto, release me or I will find out if what makes you a man can grow back. As she looked over her shoulder at Naruto, who smirked and said. Trust me, you will thank me in a moment. Just then the door to the room opened up and Hiashi Hyuga walked in with Lee and he said. Sir, I request that you allow me to kill this boy. Tenten shot Naruto a look and he mouthed. Later. And the third asked. What now? Lee said. He is upset because I told him that if I am going to be forced to marry into the Hyuga clan as clanhead then I have the right to abolish the cagebird seal. Tenten saw Hiashi eye twitch and Hiashi said. Over my dead body, boy. Naruto asked. May I ask a question, Hyuga-san? If you are so upset about Lee's idea for the Hyuga clan and him marrying your daughter, then why not release him? Hiashi said. This has nothing to do with you, boy. Naruto said. Actually it does. You see, if it was not for me then Lee would not have been able to beat you and the rest of your clan because I was the one who made the booze he drank and who gave it to him. Hiashi said. Well, that is very enlightening, but I don't see how that has anything to do with you. Naruto smirked and said, simple really, Lee, since you're not able to use chakra, has the doctors said anything about your children? I mean, I am sure you are planning to have lots of little Hyuga children. Hiyashi's eyes got wide and Lee said, yes, the doctor said they won't be able to use chakra also. Hiyashi said, I see, that is something I had not expected, but what does this have to do with you? The third was looking at this all and thought, what are you planning to do, Naruto? Naruto said, hey Gigi, what exactly was the decision of Hyuga Nemo and Uchiha belts that I read about in those books you sent me? The third's eyes got wide and he said, I see what you're getting at, Naruto. Hiyashi frowned and asked, what are you speaking about? The third said, during the reign of the Shadaime, the Hyuga and the Uchiha clan, both as a sign of trust, had a member of their clan marry and formed a new clan, and both clans had several branch members from the Hyuga clan and several Uchiha who did not possess the Sharingan as bodyguards. However, the branch member and the Uchiha clan both had an alternate seal to the cage bird seal placed on them and the new couple, so that way neither clan could claim rights to them. Hiyashi said, this is very enlightening, but I don't see where this is all going. Naruto said, it's going like this. In return for you agreeing to let Lee and Hinata have their freedom from your clan with the same seal that was designed for that couple, you would then have the right to have your youngest daughter that you originally wanted to be heir to take her place. Now, as for where I come in, I would allow both of them to stay as guests in my place, since it was my fault until a proper clan house is designed for them. Hiyashi thought for several minutes and said, very well, I agree with this idea. I shall have both of them come by your place this afternoon. Good day, Hokage-sama. As he turned and started to walk away. After he was gone, Lee said, but that still does not help me with the problem of being forced to marry Hinata. Naruto closed the door and the third said, actually it does, Lee. You see, once you and Hinata receive that seal, then the Hyuga clan loses its rights to you, so you won't have to marry unless you both want to. How did you find out about that, Naruto? Tenten said. Yeah, I mean, if it was this simple, why did you not say anything before? Naruto said, because I wasn't the one who found it out. Beast was. He slipped me a note about it after him and Nightcrawler scanned the library while they were here. Lee smiled and said, thank you, my friend. I can finally return to being youthful self. Naruto said, no problem, Lee, since like I said, it was my fault. Tenten asked, how did you know they were coming here? Naruto said, oh, that, I had picked up Hiyashi's screams in his head on the way here as he plotted to castrate and fillet Lee. At least you and Hinata are freed from that clan, though I feel bad about her because she's losing so much. The third said, actually, once things settle down, Hinata can move in with her sensei, who has asked to adopt her before, so that will make her happy since Hinata has not been happy in her own home. Lee said, and I can move back in with Guy sensei. Naruto said, yes, but what are you both going to do about your relationship? I mean, you both seem to be getting closer before me and Cash here went on that mission. Lee sighed and said, I don't know. I wish I knew what to think. Tenten said, talk to her, Lee. Perhaps now that you're not actually being forced together, you might be able to be friends or more on your own. Anyways, we need to get to our mission. Kakashi said, you say something. Oh right, the mission. Let's go. As he walked out of the door. As they were walking through the village, Naruto said, I wonder, what will Lee do when he learns the truth? Tenten asked, what do you mean? Naruto said, oh, I mean that Hinata actually doesn't like him. She's afraid of his eyebrows. Kakashi said, ouch, that's harsh. Naruto shrugged and Tenten said, poor Lee. Naruto said, yeah, you know what the funny thing is, Hinata afraid of Lee eyebrows, but she loves her teammates' bugs. I just kept quiet about it until now because I felt guilty, but now that they're both free. As he shrugged his shoulders. Tenten said, come on, let's race. as she took off running and Naruto right behind her. Kakashi said, "Kids." As he looked over and said, "Sorry about that, Kurenai." Kurenai and her team who were sitting at the diner Naruto and Tenten just passed were all looking at each other and Kiba said, "Damn it, here I thought Hinata liked dogs, not bugs." Shino pushed his sunglasses up and he saw the deeply blushing Hinata. "Once you go tick, you always get licked and sticked." Hinata eeped and blew back with a nosebleed and Kiba said, "That is so wrong." Kurenai thought, "Oh god, I can never look at my students the same again. I need a can of Raid." When Naruto and Tenten got to training ground 44 they saw Anko eating some dango while Isarabi was running up and down a tree with chakra. Kakashi appeared a few seconds later and said, "Ah Isarabi, I am here to introduce your two teammates, this is Cash and Echo." Isarabi looked at Naruto and looked down and Naruto said, "Relax Isarabi, I forgive you because you didn't have any choice. It's okay." Isarabi looked at Tenten who said, "As long as you know he's mine, we're cool," as she held Naruto's hand. Isarabi blinked and said, "Really? No, I am going to get revenge. No, I hate you. No, get away freak." Tenten held up her hand and a kunai formed and Naruto had his blade shoot out of his arm and Naruto said, "Well, I guess you can call us Team Freak then." Isarabi led a small smile and Tora walked out of the woods in front of them and Naruto's eyes glossed over and lightning struck the cat and Tenten began throwing weapons at the cat who dodged them. Anko shot snakes out of her coat sleeve and Isarabi asked, "What's wrong with that cat?" Tora ran up and jumped for Isarabi and bit her arm and Isarabi screamed, "Get off me you damn cat," as she threw Tora. Tora stood up and licked its lips and looked at Isarabi who screamed, "Oh hell no," as she sucked in a deep breath and spat out a stream of water and Naruto waited until the water hit Tora and froze it. Kakashi said, "Well good job all of you." Just then Tora broke free and lunged at Isarabi with her tongue out and Tenten shot out a glob of liquid metal that wrapped around Tora and forced it to the ground. Naruto then used his powers to make it float and he said, "Come on and let's get that cat back home before she tries to finish eating Isarabi," as they took the cat back to the tower. The Sandame was doing paperwork again. "Come on, does the man do anything else really at his age?" And he looked at the date on the calendar and shook his head and thought, when the hell are they getting back? It was only supposed to be 1 month, not 3. He was startled when he heard a voice said, "We actually have a very good reason for that Gigi," startling the Sandame and he looked up and saw Naruto, Tenten, and Kakashi all standing there. The Sandame glared and said, "Well what is it? You are 2 months late and I have had to make excuses up to the council, your former teammates as well as your part-time employer Cash. What took an extra 2 months on top of the 1 month you went for the wedding?" Naruto rubbed his head and said, "Well." Tenten slapped him upside the back of his head and said, "Quite, I'll tell him." Kakashi said, "I should probably tell him since I am more of a neutral on everything that happened." The Sandame sighed and said, "Please, will someone tell me already?" Kakashi said, "Well, Naruto decided to destroy the world by crashing the moon into it, causing the Sandame to blink." Naruto said, "Hey, I only tried to crash the moon onto those idiots, I was going to put it back before it did any real damage to anyone else." Tenten screamed, "Real damage? You caused earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions and a whole hell of a lot of headaches. If I didn't want to be a young widow I would kill you myself." As Naruto and Tenten began to argue with each other, the Sandame released some ki which none of them felt and then more and finally he had enough and screamed, "Quite." After he got their attention the Sandame said, "Kakashi, start from the beginning and explain what the hell went on." Kakashi said, "Well, after we left and appeared at the Xavier school we spent a couple of days getting used to the way the world was there and getting fitted with a device that allowed Tenten and I to understand and speak other languages. While we were there a fangirl of Naruto who was the president, or leader of the country they lived in, Daughter showed up in something called a sentinel and all the X-Men nearly destroyed it and her before she showed she was inside it. She came out and started trying to hug and kiss Naruto, which didn't go over well with Tenten, and Tenten told her in no uncertain terms to leave her man alone. Tenten said, I told that skank to leave him alone or I would use her bones as toothpicks after I carved her flesh from her skin. Naruto said, to make a long story short, they were about to fight until I said Tenten was my fiancé copyright after one of my friends mentioned we were needing to leave and get our cloths for the wedding. The girl hearing this didn't believe that we were engaged and asked us about it, and she invited herself to go shopping with us to get our cloths. Since we didn't have a choice because we couldn't risk upsetting that girl due to the fact the peace that was started there was after I originally saved her life in the first place. Kakashi said. So we flew to another country with Ms. Speedmouth as I call her and went to Paris, France. When we got there we went to eat and ran into two reporters, Peter Parker and Clark Kent, who was there to cover another story, and they were friends of the X-Men. The girl revealed that Naruto and Tenten were engaged, trying to prove that it was a lie or a trick because she was obsessed with Naruto. Naruto said. Clark was with another reporter, Ms. Lane. She heard this and quickly called her editor, and in less than an hour it was worldwide news. Tenten said. So we were trapped in plans to get married, and the skank started giving all kinds of wild and crazy ideas and made a few phone calls, and she got Liberty Island, which is like a huge shrine with the Statue of Liberty, a national treasure in the United States where the X-Men lived, as the site for our wedding without ever asking us if she could even help. Naruto said. So by dinner mom and everyone called me on my cell phone wanting to know what was up with the news, and since Tenten never actually went against the idea I broke down and officially asked her to marry me in the City of Love. She of course agreed, and so we spent the next couple of weeks getting things for mom's wedding and then our own wedding. Luckily Susie dad had the Secret Service come get her by this point, and I kept a promise to an old friend named Diamond. The Sandame said. Diamond. I think I remember Xavier mentioning that person before. Naruto said. Well, Diamond was a woman whose powers first appeared several hundred years ago. Her skin can turn into diamonds or back to flesh, but her organs are all made of diamonds, so she could never die of old age. She was married and had 2 children until one day one of her children were caught in a fire and she was forced to reveal her powers. Back then people believed in witchcraft and things like that, and so when the people saw this they thought she was a witch and they killed her husband and children in front of her while she was locked away in a cage before they tried to drown her in a river. Since she couldn't die, she had me make a promise that when I got older and decided to get married she would make the wedding dress and jewelry for my bride and our wedding rings if I would help her to return to her family. At the time I didn't know what she meant, but because of the special metal my skeleton and Tenten powers are made from, it can cut even diamonds like it was paper. And the Sandame said. I can guess what happened. Everyone was quiet a few minutes and said, well anyways, back to what happened. At Rogue and Gambit's wedding, Rogue informed everyone a secret they have been hiding, and that was that she was pregnant, 6-month pregnant actually. Kakashi said. After that wedding we spent time preparing for these 2 wedding, and when we went to Liberty Island for the wedding it was a big event with a lot of powerful and influential people and reporters. Tenten said. The group that Naruto originally captured to save the president's daughter had escaped prison along with some anti-mutant activists who got armed together and attacked our wedding. It was a one-sided fight because 60% of the guests were either mutants or superheroes, but someone shot Rogue. The Sandame eyes widened and Kakashi said. When she was shot it hit her in the stomach and hit the baby inside her. Naruto, seeing her get shot, lost it and literally used his ability to control magnetism to pull the moon out of orbit toward us. If a superhero named Superman wouldn't have stopped the moon it would have destroyed the planet. Naruto said. What? Nobody fucks with my family, especially my mama. Tenten said. Anyways, They had to do an emergency birth on the baby and he was born with rogue's powers, which is to suck the powers or chakra out of a person, so I used my powers to transfer my chakra to the baby as well as cover his wounds and heal them using them like a second skin where he had been shot, and he absorbed some of my powers as well. Naruto said. After that there was a trial for those men who attacked out wedding. I had to do a lot of community service and had to go to some anger management classes as well as pay for the damage I caused, and I'm on probation now with the world government, especially after they found out I was the person who leveled Geonosis. The Sandaime said. Probation? Why only probation? Naruto rubbed his head and Kakashi said. Because during his trial they used a machine to display his memories. All of them. After the entire world saw the pain and suffering he had to endure and the fact he still wants a peaceful life and to help people, they decided that he deserved at least one chance, and the governments that supported Geonosis got in a shitload of trouble for their help and support of that slave extermination program. People got a first-hand look at the pain and suffering of mutants, and a true understanding of what they had to endure was felt by the people. Being cruel to mutants because of them being born different is now considered a hate crime and punished as such, so new laws and a better system was developed. The Sandaime said. I see. So you are now husband and wife, I take it. Kakashi said. Yes, they are. Also, sir. When Naruto year is up, both Tenten and I would like to resign, sir. The Sandaime frowned and said. May I know why? Tenten said. Sir, with all due respect, we will never be truly happy here. The people are socially isolating Naruto, and when they find out we're married, me as well. I only have a few connections here, and the same goes for my father. The other world is working on true peace between everyone, and there are those there that accept us, and we have family there, sir. The Sandaime said. Very well. I will accept it. Do you wish to still enter the Chunin exams? Naruto said. Yes. We wish to show the village what they are losing, so that way if others who are different appear they will learn from their mistakes. The Sandaime nods and said. I understand, and for what it's worth I'm sorry, Naruto. The exams begin in 2 days. I'll inform Isarabi to meet at your place tomorrow. Naruto said. Thanks Gigi, and we may stop by from time to time to say hi when we do leave. The Sandaime nods and said. Well, go get some rest. They all nod and Naruto slipped them back to the mansion. The day of the Chunin exams finally arrived, and Team Mutant or Team 7 depending on who you asked stood outside the academy, and Naruto said, so it's in Iruka old room, the first exam. Tenten said, yeah, that's room 301. Naruto grabbed her hand and placed his other hand on Isarabi's shoulder before all three disappeared in a puff of smoke and appeared in the room, pushing several people away and startling more. Naruto said, sorry, with a sheepish grin as he offered his hand to some of the people he knocked over, who mostly refused it. After walking away from the group, Kakashi stuck his head inside the room from outside the door and said, Team 7, you're supposed to use the door to enter a room. Naruto said, ninja don't use doors. That's for civilians. Kakashi thought a moment and said, true, good luck. As he left quickly, pissing off several genin who thought they were being called civilians. A few minutes later, Team 9 with the Lihu was back dressing like his old self, Sasuke, and Neji, who both had sticks shoved up their asses, so to speak. A shout of, Sasuke-kun, was heard as Ino dashed for Sasuke, who dodged her attempt to glomp him, and he delivered a knee kick to her ribs, and the sound of bones breaking was heard as Ino coughed up some blood and fell to the ground. Naruto growled as he saw this, and Tenten placed her hand on his shoulder to stop him as they saw Shikamaru and Choji glare at Sasuke, who had a smug look on his face, and they whispered to Ino a few moments before heading toward the door. Naruto said, remind me to hurt him if I get the chance. Tenten said, not if I get to him first. A silver-haired kid with glasses started to walk toward Team 9, and he said, you should reel. Anything else that was going to be said was silenced as a group of chunin and a man in a trench coat appeared and said, settle down, you maggots. You, Uchiha. Take your team and get the hell out of here. The permission slip you signed told you there was to be no fighting before the exams started and you broke that rule. Get the hell out of here. Sasuke said. You can't do that. It was self-defense because she attacked me first. Ibiki glared at Sasuke and asked, does anyone agree with his statement? The silver-haired kid said, yes, Proctor-san. The girl did act aggressive toward him, but I am unsure of what her full motives were, but they could have been thought of as an attack. Ibiki glared at the silver-haired kid and said, very well. Since he's not a member of your team, I will accept his answer, but I am placing you on warning, Uchiha. Any more fighting without the proctor's permission, self-defense or not, will result in your being expelled from these exams. Now everyone is to draw a number and find their seats so we can begin. Naruto found himself in the front right corner of the room and he smirked as he read Ibiki's mind and thought, Tenten, Isarabi, here are the answers. Number 1. As he told them the answers. After both girls wrote them down, surprising Ibiki and the Chunin proctors, since the plants had only just gotten to the first couple of questions, as to not make things too easy. Naruto for his part though put his hands behind his head and smirked at Ibiki, who said, what's the matter, afraid to answer any questions? Seeing Naruto smirk. Naruto said, it has my name on it, that's all I will need. Ibiki frowned and said, oh, why is that? Naruto said, we start off with 10 points, so I have full score right now. If I write a single answer then I lose 1 point, and if I cheat I lose 2 points. Why cheat or try when by only writing my name I have all 10 points even without knowing the last question? That's the loophole in your test, and you could pass a rule saying we have to at least answer 1 question, but because I brought that loophole in your rules to you, then you can't punish me by the law because the law was made to fix a hole I exploited. Ibiki said. Smart ass. New rule. Everyone else here without a brain like this kid and his 2 teammates, since they finished before anyone else, has to at least try to answer every question, right or wrong. You only pass with a completed paper. Several people who were thinking of using Naruto example glared at him. As the first exam ended, a woman dressed in very revealing clothing crashed through the window and she said, don't relax, the second exam is about to start. My name's Anko and I am your second proctor. You have 20 minutes to make it to training ground 44 or you fail. Follow me. Ibiki said. You're actually on time this time, Anko. Anko shrugged and jumped out the window. Naruto laughed and said, I wonder if her and Wolverine had a kid together who it would take after. Tenten shuddered and said, I don't think the universe could handle another her or him. Come on. As she got up and the 3 quickly left. When they got to training ground 44, Anko looked at a watch and said, time. Anyone else who arrives fails. Now, as she explained the test about getting 2 scrolls and getting to the tower in less than 5 days. 15 minutes later, Naruto sighed as they stood in front of gate 5 and said, this is so boring. Is this really what it takes to advance to be a ninja? I mean, I can get the scroll and get to the tower in less than 10 minutes by myself. Tenten said, yeah, but you got to realize not everyone has our advantages, so which team has the scroll we need? Naruto thought a moment and said, the team at the next gate has it. Isarabi said, I still think that's freaky how you do that. But if it gets me away from the damn cat, I don't care. Tenten chuckled and said, yeah, most genins have to chase it, but you have it chase you. An alarm went off and the gates opened and Naruto disappeared and appeared in front of the team at gate 4 just as they entered the forest, driving a knee in the first guy's stomach, and said, sorry, as he grabbed the scroll from the guy's weapon pouch and disappeared in a puff of smoke. The guy's 2 teammates asked, what the hell? As they began to help their teammate back out of the gates. Naruto appeared just inside of gate 5 as Tenten and Isarabi stood there inside the gate, and Naruto said, got it. Making the proctor at the gate wide-eyed, and Naruto placed his hand on Tenten and Isarabi's shoulder before a bubble of energy appeared around them and they began to lift off the ground, and then when they got above the trees where they could see, the tower disappeared and reappeared in front of the tower, and Naruto lowered them back to the ground. When they walked into the tower, only 10 minutes had passed since the begging of the test, and as they opened the scroll, Iruka appeared and he said, "What the hell? 0.10 minutes. How the hell did you do that?" Isarabi said, "We're just that good," causing both her teammates to laugh. Iruka said, "Well, anyways, you got 5 days to rest before the exams are over. You have choice of rooms, so find one room for all 3 of you to share while you wait. Good luck." As he left in a swirl of leaves, Tenten said, "This is so much a letdown. I almost wish we were still trying to dodge Miss Motormouth." Naruto said, "Well, let's find us a room." As the group left to find a room, a figure emerged from the ground and thought, "You are indeed interesting, Naruto." The next 5 days flew by very slowly for Team 7, with Team 8 and the Sand Team arriving on the first day after a few hours. Finally, on the last day of the exam, Kabuto team arrived and the group of genin stood in front of the Sandame, who said, "This is a very big surprise that only 4 teams has made it this far. 4 teams of 3 equals 6 matches. While that may not seem like a lot of matches, that is still too many due to the fact our VIP time is very valuable. I offer you all the chance to drop out now. Seeing as none of you wish to drop out, then please call the first match proctor." A sickly-looking Chunin walked to the front of the room and said, "If everyone would look at the board that is coming out of the wall, it will show us who you are facing. The first match is between Echo and Kabuto. Would everyone else please leave the arena floor?" Tenten leaned over and kissed Naruto on the cheek and said, "Good luck," as she walked up to the balcony where the Junin senseis were. Down on the floor, Hayate looked between the 2 members and said, "Let the first match of the semifinals end." Before a blade shot out of his arm and slammed into Naruto and through his chest, shocking everyone, and an energy field appeared on the arena floor. Tenten screamed, "Naruto!" as she jumped down and tried to get to the arena floor to Naruto, who was still frozen in place on the blade sticking out of him, and the Sandame screamed, "What are you doing, Hayate?" Hayate stood up straighter as he was covered in smoke, and Tenten said, "Reload, what are you doing? Why did you attack Echo? What's going on?" Reload, who was now seen with the blade sticking through Naruto, turned and looked at Kabuto and said, "Apocalypse, leave now. The X-Men and the Brotherhood are already on their way, and the dimensional portals to this world are being sealed off. Go now before it's too late." Kabuto chuckled and began to change, shocking everyone into Apocalypse, who said, "And why should I care if some insignificant ants such as those weaklings were to come?" Reload smirked and said, "Because if I don't stop pulling the energy out of Echo here, then you will cease to exist. After all, before you appeared in the desert in ancient Egypt as a child, you were born from a union between Echo here and another. You created your own father, and if he dies before you were born, then you will cease to exist. The paradox of time travel. Now go, or I will kill him and you." Apocalypse frowned as he eyed Naruto and said, "Very well. I do not believe your words, but I will investigate this myself." As he touched a button on his arm, and a portal appeared behind him, and he walked backwards into it and said, "I will return," before the portal closed. Once it did, Reload quickly withdrew the blade from Naruto's chest and ran over, placing his hand on Naruto's chest and said, "Hold on, bro. I'll heal you up in a moment." As the color that began to drain from Naruto started to return as the wound in his chest began to heal, Baki said, "Will someone please tell us what is going on here?" The Sandame frowned and said, "That is what I am wondering. Who are you and where is Hayate?" Reload said, "Hayate is currently in the hospital after I knocked him out and gave him a cure to heal his disease he was plagued with. As for who I am, remember the baby you heard the story about from Echo and Cash when they returned from their wedding? That's me." The Sandame, Tenten, and Kakashi all went wide-eyed, and Tenten asked as she kept trying to get through the barrier stopping her from getting to Naruto, Why did you attack Naruto and let Apocalypse leave? You're supposed to help kill him, and what were you talking about Naruto being his father? Reload sighed and said, if I had not just done what I did, Naruto would have killed Apocalypse today, and in doing so would have resulted in the deaths of several hundreds of billions of lives. As he pulled out a CD from his jacket and said, give this to the professor, in it is the explanation about what is going on. I have healed Echo but have used my powers to take his. I have a mission that I must complete now, and if I fail then we are all doomed. Cash, take care of him. He deserves happiness. I probably won't see you again for many years. Goodbye, brother. As he stood up and pressed a button and a portal opened and he walked into it before disappearing, and the barrier disappeared with him as Tenten ran over to Naruto's side as Kakashi jumped down as well, and as Tenten held Naruto, Kakashi picked up the CD and thought, why is it things are never simple, sensei? As he looked at the couple in front of him. What does the future hold, and what is the mission Reload spoke of? How is Naruto Apocalypse's father? Read X2 Weapons.
So how was the video? If you like it, then why don't you subscribe the channel and turn on the bell icon for upcoming videos and upcoming series on the channel. And if you have any kind of suggestion, or if you have if you want to express your emotions or experience on this video, why don't you go to the comment section and tell us about it? So if you like it, then subscribe, share, and watch it once more with your friends. See you later.